One of the really great databases that the church has developed and continues to add to over the recent years is the Missionary Database. And you can find this on the church history page on the church website. So you can just go to history.churchofjesuschrist.org and it will pull this up. You can also find it on a Google search. But um, once you're here, if you go under research here, you'll see there are a few different options, but Missionary Database is currently the second option. You'll also see the Pioneer Database here, so if you have Pioneer ancestors, same place you can find that. A lot of really great information here. You can also, at the bottom of the page, see the link to it, the Missionary Database here. But anyway, it'll take you to the same place. So click on that. And a lot of us have ancestors who were baptized by early missionaries in the Netherlands, and I'll show you kind of how you can do some searching and find information about them. If you know who they were, or if you don't know who they were, you can find a lot of information. So I'm going to start with the person who baptized my ancestors, whose name was Anthony Van Dam. Um, and when that comes up, you'll see, okay, there's two different options, but it was this one here, Anthony Van Dam, born in 1849. And so when I click on this, some interesting things come up. First of all, it has a picture, which is very rare. There are only two known pictures that I've ever found of Anthony Van Dam, and this is one of them. It will have information about him, and it will have a summary of his life events. So who baptized him? William Caldwine, one of Don's ancestors, where he was born, when he served a mission, and he served two different missions, and you can see the dates for those and the mission, and then other information about his life. But one of the really cool things is if you look here on the mission itself, when you find the Netherlands mission, you can find this on the name of any missionary who served there. You can click on that. By the way, one other thing before we get into that, I guess, if you hit this little drop down arrow, it will show the type of mission. It was proselytizing. He was married at the time he went, what priesthood quorum he was in, where he lived in Ogden, and who he was set apart by, Franklin D. Richards. So um, we'll click here and go to the Netherlands mission. And then some really fascinating stuff comes up here. So it shows the mission was formed in 1864 and who the first president was. And as you go through each mission president's name that's listed here, and I think most of them are in here, but I think there are a couple missing, you can actually see which missionaries were serving at that time under that mission president. So if I go forward and go to 1888, that time frame, when my ancestors were baptized, you'll see here that there's actually a missing portion of that from 1885 to 1891, and the missionaries are not listed. And that was when Volker was actually the president, so that's not on here. It looks like a gap in the database, but you can say go in here when Caldwine was the president and click See Missionaries, and look at this. You'll see the names and have photos if available of every missionary. And the fascinating thing was, even here we were in 1884, 1885, so more than 20 years after the mission had been established. There were still only three missionaries serving in the mission at that time. You had the mission president, and in fact, all three of these men were mission presidents at different times. And that was really how it worked for the most 20 or 30 years, where it was typically the mission president and one or two other missionaries for the entire country. So you can see why the missionary growth was maybe very slow. And then, of course, most of the people they baptized seemed to immigrate, come to the United States, and many of them, especially in the early years, wound up in Ogden. So I encourage you to take advantage of this. We can go back here, by the way, and sort by, I'll pull out some different dates here, maybe come a little bit later, and you start to see it really increase. Say in 1895 to 96, the number of missionaries now has gone up pretty significantly. It's also pretty interesting to see where these missionaries came from. You still see so many of them who came from Ogden, especially Dutch immigrant families who would come to Ogden, and then either the first generation immigrants or their children went back as missionaries. So you'll recognize a lot of these names like Dankers and Caldwine and Krootbosch and Nuttbaum and so many others here from Ogden. So the saints from Ogden who had come from the Netherlands played a critical role in the growth of the church there. So hopefully you find this database useful. It's not, of course, only useful for the Netherlands. You can find missionaries who served in any part of the world and look up those missions and learn an awful lot about them. So hopefully this is useful.